The bouncer stopped him from entering his own five-star hotel. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. They had no idea what was coming. Houston, Texas. The Ellison Grand stood on the corner of Main and Texas Avenue, 52 floors of black glass and polished steel, the most expensive hotel in the city. Rooftop pool. 3 Michelin-starred restaurants. A lobby that had been featured in Architectural Digest 3 times in 5 years. It had taken Andre Ellison 22 years to build it. He had started with one small hotel in Charlotte, 12 rooms, a broken elevator, and a business loan that 3 different banks had rejected before a fourth had finally said yes. He had cleaned those rooms himself in the early days, fixed the plumbing himself, driven guests to the airport himself at 2 in the morning when the cab didn't show. 22 years later, he owned 14 hotels across 6 American cities. The Ellison Grand in Houston was his crown jewel. He visited it 4 times a year, always unannounced, always alone, always dressed casually. He believed you learned more about how a business was really running by walking in as a regular guest than by arriving in a motorcade with advance notice. Tonight he was wearing dark trousers, a clean white shirt, no tie, no name tag, no entourage, just Andre, walking up to the front entrance of his own hotel on a Tuesday evening in October. The bouncer's name was Chad Briggs, 29 years old, 6'3", 3 months into the job. He had been hired by the hotel's new events manager, a white man named Richard Voss, who had joined the team 8 weeks ago and had already made several changes to the door policy that Andre's longtime staff had quietly noted with concern. Chad saw Andre approaching and stepped forward. "Private event tonight," he said. "Guests only." Andre looked at him calmly. "I'm not here for the event. I'm a guest of the hotel." "You got a reservation?" "I don't need a reservation." Chad looked him up and down. The white shirt. The dark trousers. No luggage. No booking confirmation visible. No one with him. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step aside. You're blocking the entrance for actual guests." Andre was quiet for a moment. "I'd like to speak to the manager on duty." "The manager's busy." Chad moved closer. "I need you to move. Now." Chad put his hand on Andre's chest and pushed. Not hard, but enough. The lobby went quiet. 3 guests in evening wear who had been walking past stopped. A hotel doorman in uniform looked away. A young woman near the valet stand pulled out her phone. Andre looked down at the hand on his chest, then up at Chad's face. He said nothing. He stepped back 1 step, reached into his inside jacket pocket, and pulled out his phone. But the call Andre made in the next 30 seconds would change everything that happened inside that hotel for the rest of the night. He called Patricia Owens, his VP of Operations, 20 years with the company, based in Houston, 15 minutes away on a good night. "Patricia," he said when she picked up, "I'm outside the Grand. I need you here." Patricia had worked with Andre long enough to know that tone. Calm, quiet, deliberate. It was the tone he used when something had gone seriously wrong and he had already decided exactly how he was going to handle it. 10 minutes, she said. She didn't ask questions. Andre put his phone away and stood at the entrance of his own hotel, hands in his pockets, watching the city. Chad watched him from the door with his arms crossed, satisfied. Inside the hotel, Richard Voss, the events manager, was moving through the lobby coordinating a private corporate dinner for 60 guests on the 3rd floor. He was good at his job in the ways that were visible. The flowers were arranged perfectly. The lighting was exactly right. The staff were moving efficiently. What Richard Voss was not good at was judgment. Patricia arrived in 9 minutes. She walked up to the entrance, nodded at Andre, and turned to look at Chad Briggs with the expression of a woman who had handled 1,000 situations worse than this one and had never once raised her voice to do it. "I'm Patricia Owens," she said, "VP of Operations for Ellison Hotel Group. This man is Andre Ellison. He is the founder and owner of this hotel. You will let him in. Now." Chad looked at her, then at Andre. Something shifted in his expression, not quite recognition, not quite understanding, but the first thin crack of uncertainty. "I was told," he started. "I know what you were told," Patricia said. "Step aside." And just when Chad stepped back and Andre walked through those doors, Richard Voss looked up from across the lobby and felt his stomach drop. Andre walked through the lobby slowly. He looked at the flowers, the lighting, the arrangement of the furniture, the positioning of the staff, the way the front desk was managing the check-in queue. He looked at everything the way a man looks at something he built with his own hands, seeing not just what was there but what had changed. Several long-time staff members recognized him immediately. A front desk supervisor named Monique, 8 years with the Grand, saw him from across the lobby and went very still. Andre caught her eye, gave her the smallest nod. Monique picked up the internal phone. Richard Voss appeared from the elevator bank 2 minutes later. He was straightening his jacket as he walked, already composing his expression into something professional and welcoming, already preparing the words he would use to explain the evening's event. He stopped when he saw Andre's face. "Mr. Ellison," he said. The color had already started leaving his face. "I wasn't. Nobody told me you were." "No," Andre said pleasantly. "Nobody knew." "I'd like to understand the door policy," Andre said. "Walk me through it." Richard cleared his throat. "We have a private corporate event on the 3rd floor tonight. We implemented a guest-only entry policy for the main entrance too." "A guest-only policy," Andre repeated. "For a hotel." Richard heard it the moment Andre said it. The absurdity of it. A hotel, a place whose entire business model was built on welcoming guests, with a policy that turned people away at the door. It was specifically for the event. "I understand what it was for," Andre said. "What I'd like to understand is who authorized it, and what criteria were being used to determine who counted as an actual guest." Richard had no good answer for that, because the honest answer, that Chad Briggs had been using his own judgment, which meant his own biases, was not an answer Richard could give without implicating himself in the decision to hire Chad and implement the policy in the first place. But what Andre found when he reviewed the security footage from the past 3 months was worse than one bad night at the door. Patricia had pulled the security footage by 10 p.m. She and Andre sat in the hotel security office on the 2nd floor and watched 3 months of door camera recordings in 2 hours. What they saw was a pattern. Clear, consistent, and deeply damaging. Chad Briggs had been turning people away at that door for 11 weeks. Not randomly. The footage showed a pattern that was impossible to explain away. Black guests turned back, questioned, made to wait while white guests of similar or lesser dress were waved through immediately. An elderly black couple who had a confirmed reservation had been told the hotel was full and had left. A black family with children had been told the entrance was for event guests only on a night when there was no event. 7 confirmed incidents. 11 weeks. All on Chad's shifts. Patricia looked at Andre. "Richard Voss hired him," she said. "And Richard Voss implemented the door policy." "I know," Andre said. "This is a legal exposure, Andre. These guests have grounds for a discrimination claim against the hotel." "I know that too." Andre stood up. "Get me the contact information for every guest who was turned away. We are going to reach out to each of them personally. Tonight if possible." Patricia was already writing. "And get me Richard Voss," Andre said. "And Chad Briggs. Conference room. Now. Be honest, if you had been turned away from your own business, would you have kept your calm the way Andre did? Tell me in the comments." Richard Voss and Chad Briggs sat on one side of the conference room table. Andre sat at the head. Patricia sat beside him with a folder. Andre let the silence sit for a full 30 seconds before he spoke. "I've reviewed the security footage from the past 11 weeks, he said. "I've identified 7 separate incidents at this entrance involving guests who were turned away or significantly delayed without legitimate cause." He looked at Richard. "I'd like to hear your explanation." Richard had had 40 minutes to prepare something. What he'd prepared was not enough. Chad was following the door policy. "The door policy you implemented," Andre said. "It was meant to maintain the standard of the 7 black guests turned away," Andre said quietly, "including a couple with a confirmed reservation who left believing the hotel was full." He paused. "That is not a standard. That is a pattern. And that pattern happened on your watch, under a policy you created, enforced by a man you hired." Richard opened his mouth. Closed it. Chad had not said a single word since sitting down. Patricia opened the folder. "What you may not be aware of," she said calmly, "is that 3 of the affected guests have already been contacted by our legal team. 2 of them have indicated they intend to pursue discrimination claims." She slid a document across the table. This is a preliminary legal assessment of the hotel's exposure. Richard looked at the document. His face had gone the color of the white tablecloth. There's something else, Patricia said. She pulled out a second document. A background check we ran this evening on Chad Briggs. She placed it on the table. Chad was terminated from his previous security position 14 months ago following a discrimination complaint from a guest at a hotel in Dallas. That complaint was settled out of court. She looked at Richard. That information was available in a standard background check, which was not conducted before he was hired. The room was completely silent. Richard Voss looked at the documents, then at Andre, then at his own hands. Chad Briggs was terminated effective immediately. Richard Voss was placed on suspension pending a full internal review and relieved of all duties for the remainder of the evening. He left the hotel at 11:15 p.m. carrying his jacket and his phone and nothing else. The head doorman, a black man named Marcus who had been with the Grand for 11 years, held the door open for him without a word. Andre spent the next 2 hours personally calling every guest who had been turned away. The elderly couple with the confirmed reservation, Mr. and Mrs. James, retired teachers from Houston, received a personal apology from Andre, a full refund of their original booking, and a complimentary 5-night stay in the Grand's penthouse suite. Each of the 7 affected guests received a personal call, a personal apology, and a personal commitment from Andre that what had happened would not happen again. At 1 a.m. Andre stood at the front entrance of the Ellison Grand and looked out at Houston. Monique, the front desk supervisor who had called the internal line when she'd seen him walk in, appeared beside him. "You okay?" she asked. "Yeah," he said. "How long has it been like this?" Monique was quiet for a moment. "Since Voss came. About 8 weeks. Some of us flagged it internally. Nothing happened." Andre nodded slowly. "Who flagged it?" "I did. Twice. So did 2 other staff members." "Those reports went to Voss?" "Yes." Andre looked at her. "From tomorrow you report directly to Patricia. Anything, any concern, any incident, directly to her." He paused. "And Monique, thank you for flagging it, and for making that call tonight." Monique nodded. Her eyes were bright. The internal review concluded 3 weeks later. Richard Voss was terminated. The hotel's door policy was completely overhauled. A new guest relations protocol was implemented across all 14 Ellison hotels, mandatory bias awareness training for all door and front desk staff, a direct reporting line for guest concerns that bypassed hotel management and went straight to the VP of operations, and a quarterly audit of door camera footage at every property. The 2 guests who had indicated intent to pursue legal claims settled, not in court but directly, personally, with Andre. Both settlements included financial compensation and a standing invitation to any Ellison property for life. Andre gave a statement to the Houston Business Journal 3 weeks after the incident. It was 4 sentences long. "Every guest who walks through our doors deserves to be treated with dignity. That is not a policy. It is a promise. And when we fall short of that promise, it is our responsibility, my responsibility, to make it right." Andre Ellison sat in the executive office on the 52nd floor the next morning and thought about a 12-room hotel in Charlotte with a broken elevator. He thought about the banker who had finally said yes when 3 others had said no. About the rooms he had cleaned himself. The airport runs at 2 a.m. The years of work that nobody had seen because it had happened quietly, without announcement, without anyone watching. He had built all of this. Floor by floor. City by city. Hotel by hotel. And last night a man at a door had looked at him and seen someone who didn't belong. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes with being a black man of means in America. It is not the exhaustion of poverty or of struggle, though many know that exhaustion too. It is the exhaustion of having built something real and still being made to prove, over and over again, that you belong in the rooms that your own hands created. Andre Ellison had been turned away from his own hotel. He had not shouted. He had not threatened. He had not reached for his phone to prove who he was to a man who had no intention of seeing him clearly. He had called Patricia. He had walked in. He had sat down. He had done the work. Because that is what black excellence actually looks like. Not the moment of triumph, but the 1,000 quiet moments of discipline and dignity that made the triumph inevitable. To every black man and woman who has ever been made to feel like a visitor in a space you built, who has been questioned, stopped, turned away, underestimated. Your presence is not a privilege. It is a right. And the door will open. One way or another, the door will always open. Stay the course. Do the work. Let them find out. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And tell me in the comments, would you have kept your calm the way Andre did, or would you have shown them who you were right there at that door?